What's up, you guys? Pete DiCarlo here, and today we're going to talk about SPCE or Virgin Galactic. So this is a company that was a long-term investment of mine. I'm no longer in it, really for opportunity reasons, but I feel that as much as I believe in Virgin Galactic long-term, I would not personally be buying up at the $37 range. However, things have changed. We had at one point almost a 35% drop today, and it has recovered pretty substantially, but I want to talk about it right now and go over the news that kind of triggered this. Essentially, they had a test flight today where they were unable to get to space. We'll get into the details. Everything's fine though. Everything, landed safely. Everything's safe, which is good, but I wanted to kind of share the news, kind of go over it, and where do I see SPCEStock going in the future, because this is not a company that, Kramer says something in his books, which Kramer's one of those guys, like he's just a talking head, but his books are actually pretty good. One thing that he talks about a lot is that essentially, if you say you would buy a sweater for like $30, would you go ahead and buy the same sweater for $150, right? For a lot of people, the answer is no. Just because you'd pay for a sweater for $30, you bought the sweater. If you came back 4 months later and the sweater was worth 60 or 100 or 200, would you still pay for it? Probably not. It's kind of the same thing with stocks, right? I would have been buying SPCE heavily at $17. I'm not going to be buying it heavily at $36, and we'll kind of talk about that. But let's get into this news first. So, Virgin Galactic test flight fails to reach space after a fail-safe landing was triggered. Virgin Galactic attempted a test flight of its Spaceship 2 Unity spaceplane on Saturday, but the flight was cut short after the spacecraft detached from its carrier aircraft. A fail-safe prevented Unity's rocket engines from firing up because the computer that monitors the rockets somehow lost their connection to the rocket engines themselves, Virgin Galactic revealed Monday morning. The fail-safe cutoff meant that both Spaceship 2 Unity and the carrier aircraft, along with all the pilots on board, were able to return safely to the Earth for a successful landing without an incident. But the test flight was meant to go all the way up to space, and this would have been a key stage-setting event to clear the way for flying the first actual paying passengers from the company's New Mexico spaceport. Virgin Galactic has flown to space on 2 prior occasions, first in 2018 and again in 2019. This would have been its first suborbital flight from New Mexico. However, it is required preparatory step before it can serve a commercial customers from its operational base there. So overall, not terrible news. So the stock market moves, really based off of news. We got huge moves in Virgin Galactic stock. Let me kind of make this smaller real quick for you guys so we can take a look at the chart, which the chart doesn't really matter long term, but I still think there's some key levels, and I want to kind of break apart why we've been seeing a lot of movements. So a lot of this big breakout here we've been seeing is simply because they released a couple of weeks ago that they were going to do another test flight, this test flight, and that it was going to happen in fall, and they were going to go back up to space for the first time since a year, right? Because they went in 2018, 2019. They haven't been to space since 2020. Now, this is why we've been seeing a lot of big moves in the stock. We went all the way from 17 up to 36. I actually did call this out on my private stock market community on the weeklies tab. So if you do want to join our academy and get these plays live, you could have literally made 105% returns in 45 days. Of course, it's not always like that, but technically we saw this massive squeeze that was happening here. And then they released a lot of great news behind it. Now, is this good or bad? Let's say this is not good, but how bad is this, right? Well, for me, number one, let's look at the good thing. Everybody's safe. It's not like anybody died. It's not like this went horribly wrong. I think that would have been really bad, because the way that this aircraft works and the whole system works is essentially there is a big aircraft that brings the smaller Space Unity 2s up into orbit, and then the small Space Unity 2s detach from that big rocket, the big aircraft, and then they go out into orbit themselves, and then I believe they come back and land themselves. So overall, even though the failsafe triggered, it's not like anybody died. So let's say that we did, it's just like a roller coaster or anything else. Let's just say that something bad did happen, and there were customers, paying customers, civilians on that plane, on that aircraft, worst comes to worst, they didn't die. You know, that's a good thing. It's not like anything terrible happened. They just wouldn't have gone to space. They probably would have had to get onto another one. But you know, from a testing standpoint, that's good. Nobody died. It's not like it ended up in a catastrophic explosion or something like that. But from a bad standpoint, you know, really the only bad thing is they didn't get up into space. And from an investor, not a trader, but from an investor standpoint, I'm not too upset about that. Everything went fine. The failsafe went the way it was supposed to. Nobody got hurt. But from a stock perspective, which is always consistently driven by catalysts within the news and overreacts to everything, that's not a good sign, because the reason we've had this big push up is because it's all been riding on this test. So when the test comes out bad and poorly, that you know, of course nobody got hurt, but still that it didn't do what it was supposed to do. That's why we see these massive drops overnight of like 28% in a single night. However, you can see that while the stock and investors did really overreact poorly, I believe, to the downside, we did see a really quick bounce, and now we're actually up about 20% from lows. But overall, I still don't see it as a terrible thing. I'm still a long-term bull on SPCE, and if anything, I think that this is just a good time to start a potential position, right? I would really like to be starting a position. I would be buying this personally again at like 26. I'd really like to be buying it at 23, but for the long term, I would be buying this at $26. I think at $26, it's a fairly, maybe a little overvalued, but fairly valued or overvalued company, because from a fundamental analysis standpoint, this company is not a good company, right? Like, this is an idea. They are executing it well, I believe, and it has huge potential returns in the future. But from like a fundamental standpoint, it's not a solid company. It's not safe. It's not solid. That they don't have great fundamentals, the balance sheet and everything. It's like, it's not one of those Warren Buffett-y type of companies. Of course, it's a very speculative company, but I still believe that overall they have a bright future. I think this is just a small bump in the road. And I think if anything, this is a really good time to be averaging down if you got in at 34, 35, or to potentially be starting a position like myself. I would like to see it sell off a little more, but still, I mean, you can see here too on Black Box, if we take a look right here, let's go back and let's look at SPCE. Today, pretty mixed across the board. A lot of day trades, nothing unusual, nothing really crazy happening on Black Box today. But overall, I think that it's still a really good investment. It's something I will probably be starting a position in if it can get back down to 26. And I want to just kind of share that with you guys. Let me know what you think. Let me know how you think it went. If you're a long-term investor or trader, I like hearing from you guys. Hit the like button, subscribe to this channel. Thank you guys so much for 3,000 subscribers almost in just a single year. It really means a lot to me, guys. Thank you so much for the support, and I'll see you guys next time.